Welcome to this edition of Morgan He Asked For podcast. Wednesday evening, getting close to the end of the Final Four. Final Fours this weekend, end of the tournament. March is officially over. We have crossed into April, but we're still going to talk basketball and all the madness, transfer portal, coaching changes, and then the actual games, which, if you think about it, games-wise, we only have 3 games left. 3 on the women's side, 3 on the men's side. So basketball season is almost over. And so for most of our fans, for our top 2 sports, football, basketball, after this weekend, we have I think I saw like 130 days until football starts again. So it becomes our time where we can talk about random stuff and we get into Caitlin Clark and the WNBA will be back. Will be interesting to follow her in her second season here. But do want to get to the task at hand, Final Four. I want to thank everybody that did sign up for our ESPN bracket pool. Sorry, I believe a lot of you are playing for second place. Actually not. There are some right there with me. But in both the men's and women's, I picked the Elite 8 and Final Four correctly. That's pretty impressive. I'm very lucky. I'll promise you that.
Yeah, lucky or just good. I didn't realize you had the Elite 8 and both of them correct for both the men's and the women's. That really is impressive. Yeah, so the people there we'll get payouts going toward the end of when that gets done. Like you said, we only got 3 games left in both. Before we get started, and I'm sure we're going to get into this anyway, but one thing that nobody's doing and nobody ever does, but I think that they need a big congratulations is some folks that never get it. All anyone does is complain about them. How about the selection committee? 4 number 1 seeds. Everybody's freaking out about 4 number 1 seeds. How about the selection committee getting it right? 4 1s, 3 2s, and a 3 in the Elite 8.
Yeah, so this is what actually is supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
They actually seeded it. I agree with you. They the teams actually played the way they're supposed to play, and the committee essentially got it right. There was just 1 3 seed on both sides, correct? LSU and Texas Tech, and then everybody else was 1s and 2s, which is what's supposed to happen.
Yeah, everyone's saying this is the end. College sports are, the sky's falling is what I thought we should probably – a couple of days ago I was thinking we were going to name this the sky is falling, which it's not. Sports are going to be just fine, and you and I have talked about it before. The tournament's probably got too many teams. Everybody, I know Duke wasn't a power before NIL. They were not good before all this happened. I know Florida didn't win 2 national titles in the early 2000s. I know Michigan State and Tom Izzo weren't good before NIL and transfer portal. I know that's all just happened recently, so our history doesn't matter. I looked up back in 1939, the first March Madness, only 8 teams made it. So all the purists out there and everyone that thinks the sky's falling, how about we just go back to 8 teams, just 8, and have a tournament?
Yeah, Houston didn't go to the back-to-back championship games in the mid-'80s. And as part of – they were on the receiving ends of one of the biggest upsets and miracle plays with NC State. People do forget that was against Houston to win their title. They went 0-2 in the kind of Butler in the early 80s where made 2 championship games in a row and lost both of them.
Yeah, and I do think that, the days of, the George Masons or the Florida Gulf Coast or some of those schools, we might not see it as often, but – I was going to ask you, can you name many of the players that played at George Mason or Florida Gulf Coast or any of those teams? I mean,
St. Peter's. And that's where I listen to, I listen to a lot of people talk and, a lot of radio shows and stuff like that. And it was, North Carolina ended Coach K's career in the Final Four 3 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever it was. And North Carolina was an 8 seed. But do you remember the team they beat to go to the Final Four? They shouldn't have been there either. They played St. Peter's in the Elite 8 as a 15 seed. I mean, they weren't supposed to be there either. Now, Duke was supposed to be there. Mm-hmm. But Kentucky blew it. I think Purdue blew it. I think those are 2 of the teams that St. Peter's beat on the way there. And that's one of the things that is overlooked in Fran's tenure of the NCAA tournament. Now, he never won very many games, but even when he did win that first round game, he always played the highest seed possible or the best team possible. So if they were obviously when you lose in the first round, it is what it is. But the second round, like when they played Oregon, they were the better team when they were the 2 seed, or 3 seed, whatever it was. And just from then on, it was just always the best team possible. Like Iowa State, one of the times they went to the Sweet 16s, they won their first round game, and then they beat a 12 seed in Arkansas Little Rock. And Chris Beard was their coach, actually. Kind of full circle to this year. But they upset somebody in the first round, so then Iowa State had a little bit easier path in the second round. So sometimes the tournament is a crapshoot and just luck of the draw. But overall, it's always fun, good games. John Calipari is a great coach, but for some reason lately in the NCAA tournament, he had that game won in the Sweet 16 game against Texas Tech and blew it. And then the exact opposite happened in the next game for Texas Tech where they had it, and then they blew it to Florida. And people do forget when those runs happen or the flips. Florida went 4 for 4 from the 3-point line in 2 minutes. That's how that happens. They miss one of those shots, it doesn't happen. But they go 4 for 4, and Florida and other teams, some of those guys just go crazy and can't miss. I did win some money on the Alabama Elite 8 game against who they played Duke, right? Mm-hmm. I bet a lot of money on Duke because I was like, there is no way Alabama is shooting as good as they did against BYU, and I was correct. Ended up a little bit closer, but you could see that coming from a mile away when Alabama shot that good against BYU.
Yeah, for the Texas Tech Florida game, I had Texas Tech winning that region at 7-1. So when they were up there with about 3 minutes left, I was feeling pretty good. Now I wasn't overly confident because you and I watched enough sports. I'm like, it's not over. There's plenty of time left. But I was feeling probably like a 7 out of 10 on the confidence scale. I'm like, all right, they got the lead, 3 minutes to go. And I thought about looking at the live betting to bet Florida just to see, and I didn't. Obviously, now I wish I would have. But yeah, for me, I did a lot better on the women's side. The one bet that helped me win some money is I had a 3-team parlay in the men's. I had Florida and Duke to reach the Final Four, and then I had Michigan State. It would have paid out $1,100. So when Michigan State played Auburn, I hedged on Auburn a little bit. I could have done more. I wish I would have done more, but so I did win some money because of that one.
Yeah, and you hit a pretty good one for the Elite 8 for the women that you shared as well with us. That one wasn't too bad either. Kind of see that one coming. And then obviously in the women's side as well, I had UConn beating USC. Obviously, when I went through the bracket, I did not know Juju Watkins was going to blow her ACL in the tournament. So you felt really good about that one going forward as well. That would have been a completely different game if she was playing.
It would have been. UConn feels like the best team to me right now. They're actually 7.5-point favorites over UCLA. UCLA is the number 1 overall seed in the tournament. So that just shows you the committee feels really good about UConn. I think UConn would have beat a healthy USC regardless, but we won't know that now since Juju got hurt. But for the men's side though, the games have all been there's been some good basketball being played, and I'd rather see Duke versus Alabama, Florida versus Texas Tech than one of these other smaller schools make it to the Elite 8 and lose 93-56. At least most of these games have at least been semi-competitive. I know like Auburn and Michigan State, Auburn got up and Michigan State could just never close the gap. Now Tennessee, Houston was that one was over pretty early. I think Houston was Tennessee was 0 for 14 from 3 to start the game. Yeah. A lot of that had to do with Houston's defense, but just imagine how bad it would have been if some of these smaller schools would have made it. So there's a lot of people freaking out about the Cinderellas are done. It's 1 year. We'll have to review this in like 5 years to see if there hasn't been any Cinderellas since then.
Yeah. And then, another stat I heard that some of it right now is, and it is a transfer portal. It is money that just look at the Missouri Valley from last year. 15 players on the all-conference team, first, second, third team. Only one player was back. Now, some graduated, but everybody else transferred. But what's happening is now all those players are older, but college basketball next year, for the most part, there are still a few exceptions, is getting 25% younger because COVID is finally done and no one's getting those years back. So it is going to be a little bit younger. So those Houston and an Iowa State and an Iowa is not going to be able to go get that 23, 24-year-old as easy. Now, some of these top teams, Duke, are still going to get some of them, but they're not going to just go everywhere because they're out of eligibility. They're going to be 21, 22, and so instead of 23, turning 24. And that does matter. A 24-year-old playing college basketball against an 18-year-old, that is just a different level. You think about when they were in high school and school together, one was a senior and one was in seventh grade. There's a lot of difference there.
Yeah, Kylie Feuerbach for Iowa was coming back for another year. So you're right, this whole COVID extra year stuff, it's tough to even keep track of it anymore, especially for someone like me that doesn't pay quite as close attention to it as you do, especially on the men's side. But yeah, you're right. Some of these super seniors or whatever they're being nicknamed because of the COVID year and all this extra stuff, some of those are graduating. But no, I think the tournament's been – listen, it's the four best teams. Hopefully we get two good games this weekend and then a good national championship game. That game in 2008 where all the four seeds made – or all the number one seeds made it last time in 2008, that was that Memphis-Kansas game where I was a big fan of that Memphis team, had Derrick Rose on it. Kansas comes back with Chalmers and wins it, but I was rooting for Memphis. So hopefully we'll get a championship like that one.
Yeah, I mean, that was a great shot by Chalmers, missed free throws by Memphis. John Calipari gets, that was kind of those players were getting paid in 08 just like they are now. It just wasn't legal. Or wasn't out in the open as much.
Those were the McDonald's bags those days.
Yeah, it was back to the McDonald's bags and casinos. That's the one that I've heard. It was McDonald's bags, and then casinos was another one where you can buy chips and then give the chips to somebody else so they can cash them in as well. So let's just go ahead. Let's kind of pick our men's Final Four games. Auburn, Florida, SEC. So SEC is guaranteed a team in the championship game. I do think they proved that they were the best conference. I don't think it really was an argument. But they did prove in this tournament that the SEC was the best conference. So they're going to have a team represented. Auburn, Broom is hurt. I don't care what anybody says. It's his non-dominant hand, so it's better, but it looks – he hyperextended that elbow, it looked like, and it's not good. In my bracket, I have Auburn, but I'm going to pick Florida because of that injury.
Auburn's the way I'm going. I'm sticking with them. I think they're, if you looked on DraftKings, not that this matters or anything, but I am going with Auburn. I did look a little bit before we got started to kind of see what the odds were to just win the whole thing. I think Duke was plus 100. Auburn, I think, was plus 550. Houston 4-1, and then Florida might have been 3-1. So just some odds, but I'm going to stick with Auburn. Florida's been in some tight games, but to Florida's credit, they've come out on top of all of these.
Yeah, they're good. They just keep getting better and better, and that's the thing with obviously Iowa State. The post-mortem season's over. Obviously, the injuries had a lot to do with it, but I think that was Iowa State's maybe issue is they couldn't get any better. They returned almost all their players, and they hit their max in December and early January, and they couldn't go up anymore. And then they had a couple injuries that really took them down, but they were not a team. They were a team ready to go from the start because most of the team returned. Some of these teams now are just hitting like Duke. Cooper Flagg is a better player today than he was in November. One, because he's got 6 months of college under his belt and just knowing how to do it better. He should be in high school still. That's what's crazy about Cooper Flagg is he turned 18 in December. He should be getting ready for high school prom or starting a baseball season or just going to his AAU basketball tournaments. But he reclassified, and he's going to be the number 1 pick, and he is unbelievable for being 18 years old. He is really, really good, 6'9", 6'10". So the Duke-Houston game, I am going to take Houston, and it is simply because it is 23-year-olds versus 18-year-olds. The 18-year-olds are more talented, but nobody plays harder than Houston. No one plays better defense than Houston. And this year, they do have like an LJ Cryer that can shoot the basketball that they haven't had in these last few years, where they've been to a Final Four and didn't get there or fell short last year when Snead got hurt. You know, they had some bad luck as well. But I do think this is the year to get them. But I think that is going to be the best game of the weekend and one hell of a basketball game. But I'm going to say Houston pulls it out in a tight one.
I'm going to take Duke. So you and I are disagreeing on both these, which is good. Sometimes we agree on both the games when we're picking stuff like this. Houston, though, I mean, what they did to Tennessee was really impressive. I thought Tennessee had a decent chance in that game, and they had no chance from the very beginning of that one. So their defense is just, it obviously is one of the best in the nation. So, and the thing about all these coaches too is none of them have a title, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've got the 2 kind of older coaches, the 2 younger ones, and we got Cooper Flagg's story. So I think all 4 of these teams kind of have a good storyline. If I was rooting for them, I'd say Florida's the team I'm rooting for the least of the 4. But I like all the other teams and the coaches and players too. I think it'd be cool to see Cooper Flagg win it. But if Auburn or Houston wins it too, I'm not going to really be upset. So I'm pretty happy with how the tournaments has turned out so far.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'd love to see Sampson win it. He's been all over. He's done a little bit of everything. He's won at Oklahoma. He won at Indiana. Got in trouble at Indiana for texting players. How crazy is that? But when he was there, you couldn't text players, and that's what he did. Bruce Pearl, kind of, did his thing and then had to go work his way back up. He was an assistant at Iowa for a long time under Tom Davis. Then had to go to like Southern Indiana and UW Milwaukee, and then he's at Tennessee, and now he's at Auburn. So it's those 2 guys have kind of always bent the rules a little bit and got in trouble for it, and now they're back because the rules are different now. Now what they got in trouble for back in the day isn't even breaking the rules today. Then you got the 2 young coaches. I did see this today. I did not realize this, but Todd Golden was on staff at Auburn under Bruce Pearl after playing at St. Mary's.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a way to do it. That's a weird situation. You remember hearing that he was like being investigated for stalking girls or whatever on campus this year? I don't know. It's kind of weird. It kind of throwing that under the rug, not talking about that right now, but he was investigated. I think he was found not guilty. So, I mean, maybe they shouldn't be talking about it a lot, but still kind of weird. And then obviously Duke is a blue blood, handed it off. You usually don't want to be the guy that follows the guy, but he's doing a really good job. But he's a Duke guy. He's, one of those good looking, tall, was a star player at Duke, just, preppy. It just, a little bit of that just irks me a little bit, but he's done a really good job, and obviously they knew what they were doing, handing him the job, and he's obviously recruiting high school players better than everybody else because 3 of his guys are freshmen, and they're all studs. And they're from all over the country. I mean, it's not like they're all right from his backyard or whatever. One's from Wisconsin, one's from Maine, and then the guy from overseas or whatever, this big 7'2" guy.
Yeah, I saw the Florida coach was under Pearl there for some years. And did you say, was it the Florida coach that had some trouble earlier this year? I thought I remember seeing something about, but that was back when I really wasn't even paying attention to the men's side. So I think I saw that story, but never really read into it.
And I think he was found not guilty. So, I mean, or it was not founded or whatever. So, but it's still weird. And then, because usually situations like that arise and then your season goes downhill and they're one of the best teams in the There's a lot of people that think they're playing the best of anybody in the country right now because they beat Auburn a couple times. They beat Tennessee. They beat Alabama. They're like 5-1 against those teams, which is, 3 of the top 6-7 teams in the country. Mm-hmm. So there's many people that think they're going to win it all, and they might. I mean, it's all 4. There's no surprise teams there, obviously, with all being number 1 seeds. They're all very, very capable of winning it all. And it's who shoots the ball the best, and who hits timely shots or makes a timely play will win the ball games.
Yeah, whoever has the best 4 or 5 minute run at the end of a game, the final 10 minutes, the final 8 minutes, it seems like a lot of times in college basketball, especially on the men's side, they'll go 3 or 4 minutes just scoring 1 basket, or they can't get a shot to fall, or the opposite happens like Florida did versus Texas Tech. So we'll see if any of those teams can go on a run. Hopefully the games are all close. I think they're going to be. I mean, and like I said, if you look at the betting odds, whatever team you believe in the most, I mean, if you think Florida or Houston can win it, you can actually get pretty good odds on them right now just to obviously win the Final Four game and then win the championship.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of them have as good a chance. Duke's the favorite. They played the best. I really do think they played the best in the tournament. They have the best player. Flagg's the best player, in my opinion. And that's always a good start when you have the best player.
I think he's projected the Utah Jazz are one of the favorites to win the lottery in the NBA. So I know some folks out. I'm in Boise right now, but there are some people I heard talking about it that they hope he goes to the Utah Jazz because he'd at least be close enough that they could go down and watch him. But I think the Bulls were in mix for a little while, but the Bulls have been doing good lately. I don't really pay that.
The Bulls are going to get in the playoffs, actually.
Yeah, I don't pay super close attention to the NBA. I mean, I keep up with the Lakers a little bit in Denver. That's really about it. But yeah, speaking of Cooper Flagg, he's definitely a hot topic. I think Sacramento is in the running for the draft lottery. So there's some teams out west and all over, obviously, that they want to get the number 1 pick this year compared to last year.
Yeah, last year's wasn't as good, but yeah, this year's, Flagg should be really, really good. I mean, he's a 6'9" guard. I mean, that just doesn't and can do everything. He's just super skilled. Been the best player at his age group since he was 14 years old. And I guess last summer when he was 17, he played the Olympic team, like a group of college kids and him. And there's some people that said that he was as good as anybody on the court, including the NBA guys that were playing that day.
Most people that pay attention to the NBA and college basketball say he really doesn't have a single weakness. And just from me watching him in the tournament, obviously most people pay attention to offense, but it seems like on defense, he just hustles everywhere, making blocks. I mean, it seems like his just defense is textbook. And that is one thing I've noticed about the tournament too. Most of the teams in general is someone explained they play every possession like it's their last, because for a lot of these guys, it is their last tournament, their last game ever. So the effort really is there on defense compared to the NBA.
Yeah, the NBA was just they're getting to be some games where it's 130 to 130 again, and just I don't know.
And then you got Stephen A. and LeBron going after. I know we didn't talk about that before we got started, but that's we talked about the NBA being in trouble a couple months ago, and then the Luka trade happened, Jimmy Butler to Golden State, and now LeBron and Stephen A. having their soap opera. Now the NBA is in the news 24/7. It feels like.
Yeah, and then Curry goes off for 52. Jokic has a 60-point triple-double. I mean, the NBA's and we're getting to the time of year where actually pay attention because the playoffs are getting close and college basketball will be done. And in the playoffs, they play hard. That's just the difference. And most of the teams right now are playing hard because they're trying to get their seed. They're getting their whether they're getting in or not, especially teams that are close. So you don't see as much sitting out right now as you do throughout the season. But, And then the other thing is just crazy how long the NBA playoffs take, too. Starts in April and ends in June.
Yeah, the playoffs take a long time. I know there's been some people in the sports media that have thought, the opening first couple rounds, they should go down to a 3-game series for more urgency, because when you go 5 and 7 game series, the urgency is not there as much. Now, when you get to the quarter or the semifinals and the finals, you probably want to have a 7-game series still. But early on, I think a 3-game series is actually pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's quick. You can't mess around. You can't. Well, we're going to punt this game away. You know, in a 7-game series, if you're up 2-0 and you're going on the road, and somebody kind of has a sore ankle or whatever, and you want to punt one game with the player or whatever, you might be able to survive it if you really think you're the better team. So it goes 5 or 6. But in a 3-game series, you have no time to punt.
Yeah, for the WNBA, the Indiana Fever, they went down 0-1, and then it was like, well, the next game's it. I mean, you got to win that one or your season's over. So the urgency is there. But, the NBA playoffs, they do take a long time. But with not much else, sports-wise going on, obviously we've got the Masters coming up next week. We've got to get our pool going. I know we'll send out a text about that, or you or Zach will probably next week. We've got the Masters, and then we've got the draft coming up at the end of this month. And after the Masters, we'll get into the draft a little bit. I see some over-under on position totals or player positions came out finally today. I've been checking like every other day for them, so they're finally out now. So I'll have to take a look at that and see if there's some good bets out there.
Yeah. Let's move on a little bit. Let's talk. We're going to continue the men real quick. Let's talk. Ben McCollum getting the job at Iowa. I know it's a little bit. It's been a while now. And some portal action is happening at Iowa. Some players are coming back, some aren't. But this is the first time you're a Hawkeye fan. You're probably the most interested in Josh Sash coming back to Iowa, where his brother was a star football player. Local kid here from Oskaloosa, was with McCollum at Drake, and now is an assistant Iowa basketball coach. But just as a Hawkeye fan, what do you think of the McCollum hire? Josh Sash, I just think that's a name, and Murph and Andy were talking about it today. That's a name that's hard to say fast. Josh Sash. You can't say it fast. You got to kind of separate the words. But really happy for him. The family's been through a lot, not just with Tyler, just in general. He's got to be super happy to put that Tiger Hawk on. I'm not a Hawkeye fan, but just for him and his family, the Hawkeyes mean a lot. And for him to be able to put the Hawkeye logo on is super happy. And then I look at him and his tax bracket and his income. He's went from living in Ottumwa as the Indian Hills head coach about 14 months ago, probably making $75,000, $80,000 as a basketball coach at Indian Hills, to moving to Des Moines to Drake. So a big step up, probably making $100,000 to $200,000. I don't know. This is all assumptions. I don't know his income, but this is just my guess. $100,000 to $200,000. So a good step up in a job and a good step up in pay, and living in Des Moines, way cooler than Ottumwa. And now he's moving to Iowa City, which is not as cool as Des Moines, in my opinion. Some people would think so. But his pay, I would move to Iowa City if the Hawkeyes want to hire me too for what he's getting paid. He's probably going to be several $100,000 as an assistant there for the Hawkeyes and under Ben McCollum.
Yeah, it's super cool for him.
His back bracket and then his movement in the last 14 months. And same thing for McCollum. McCollum's the head coach at Maryville, probably making about the same thing that Josh Sash was at Indian Hills. Maybe he had won 4 national titles, so he might have been a little over 100,000, but I can't think it had been 200. And then he goes to Drake, which is probably about $1 million a year, and now he's getting over $4 million a year in Iowa City. And same thing, Iowa guy, not too far from home, able to move 2 jobs in a year, but yet not just completely uproot your family away from your extended family and home.
Yeah, it's really cool for Josh, the entire family. He's a lifelong Hawkeye fan, so this is a dream come true for him and the entire family. But yeah, I saw when they were posting on social media, you go through the comments, a lot of people are like, is this Tyler's brother? Because they look alike, the last name. So everyone's like, yep, it's the older brother. Same family and everything. So that's super cool. Ben McCollum got a spark with Iowa now. So I would think early on next season, the fans, there should be plenty of fans in the stands early on, especially with Sturtz coming over. And then I think I saw today, I was working a show, but did 2 more players from Drake commit to Iowa now, or at least one?
One more. Yeah, 2 more today. A guy off the bench, Coombs or something like that. And then their big guy, and it's Cam, and it's some name that I can't say. I don't want to pronounce it wrong. But yes, so now there's 3 Drake players that are with him there. And then Cooper Koch is coming back as well. So I think they have 4 players on their team right now.
It's a start. You're almost to 5, so that's a good sign. But there is some excitement around the men's side now. Finally, with Fran, like we talked about many times, it just ran its course. The program just felt stale and kind of dead in a way. So it's exciting. With Josh going there, it makes it even more exciting, especially for people in Oskaloosa or anywhere that knew him. There's a lot of excitement around the men's side, so it's cool. I'm going to definitely be watching Iowa men's basketball at the beginning next season. This year, I really didn't. I was just focused on the women, but I think next basketball season I'll be watching both.
And I do think that we're getting farther. And yes, the women sold out this year, but that still was a little bit of an effect of Caitlin Clark. I do think, and then just people decided, well, I'm going to support the women's team because I'm not supporting the men's team. Well, you're going to have some people go back to the men. I truly believe that this year because of the new coach. Now, it's not just because it's Ben McCollum. I think he's going to do great, but it would have happened with any new coach. They just weren't going to support Fran, and they were done with the program as long as Fran was the coach. Whoever the new guy was going to get a bump in support and everything else like that. And it will be interesting to see if it is a little bit at the expense of the women's team. I do want to watch that next fall.
Well, there was the BC area, and now we're in the AC era. So after Clark, we'll see how long this run continues. Obviously, Addison Deal played last night in the McDonald's All-American game. I only got to see a little bit. I think she had 4 points and 2 rebounds, and then I had to go to dinner with customers. But speaking of women, Aaliyah Guyton entered the transfer portal for Iowa. I actually think it's a win for both sides. I see a lot of people thinking it's a massive loss for the Iowa women. I think since February 1st, I think she was 14 of 57 from the field, shooting just under 25%, so not good. I think she had more turnovers than field goals made since February 1st. I told you she just didn't see the court at all. If anybody wants to go back, watch the first tournament game versus Murray State. 3 out of the first 4 times she touched the ball, she drove to the rim, airballed it, drove to the rim again, got stuffed, and then another time drove to the rim into traffic, fell down and traveled, and just never looked to pass the ball. So I actually think her leaving opens up another roster spot for someone that they can bring in the transfer portal. So I actually think it's okay for Iowa to lose Aaliyah Guyton.
Yeah, and then I believe her name is Jada Williams. There's many people putting 2 and 2 together that she was going to go to Iowa to replace Guyton, or Guyton left because they thought Jada Williams was going there. But in kind of a change of whatever, money, situation, whatever, she actually is going to Iowa State, which is it's a really good deal for Iowa State, I'll be honest. And really the bigger thing is she has like 600,000 followers on Instagram because she was on some deal when she was younger, like a reality basketball thing. So it's actually going to be crazy to see Iowa State promoted that way on her, kind of not on the same scales like Olivia Dunn or something like that, but it's on that level or starting to get to that. That's what she's famous for. I have no idea. I don't follow her. I don't know what it was, but 600,000 followers sure isn't going to hurt Iowa State in their notoriety and to promote their program.
Yeah, I saw Murph posted on Facebook that she was going to Iowa State, and then his next thing was she has 600,000 followers, and that's where we're at in today's age of how many followers do you have on Instagram is a big deal. So yeah, she's a popular player. A lot of people thought she would go to Iowa. She goes to Iowa State instead. It's definitely a big get for the Iowa State women who, as you've talked about before, a lot of sophomores played this year. So Iowa State, they may have their starting 5 ready to go, and Iowa is still looking for that player who is going to play the point.
Yeah, and that Williams will be a junior, so they're all going to be juniors next year. So that, as long as the 4 starters all there's the portal is still open, so it's never a done deal until they suit up next year. I truly believe that for anybody. If in all summer and the fall, someone could say I'm out. So you never say it until that first game, really. But it looks good. Iowa State should be better. I think some of it was maybe they were overhyped this year, and now next year maybe it'll be more, top 25, and then work your way up into top 15, and then see where it ends. But they will be all juniors next year, so that is surely not going to hurt them.
No, and I saw Audie Crooks posted something like I think she made a joke out of it. Maybe there were some rumors that she was going to leave, and she just said, "Yeah, I'm coming back," and want to put it to bed that I'm not leaving Iowa State or something. So there's always those rumors going around right now with the portal and all that kind of stuff. But no, for Iowa women, I think, like I said, I think we talked about this a couple months ago. My biggest concern is who's going to play point. That's still my biggest question for Iowa women. I think all the other positions are set. Can Addison Deal play the point? Aaliyah Guyton checked a lot of boxes. She was fast, confident. Her handles were really good. She just had no court awareness. She never looked to pass the ball. So we've got to find someone who can bring the ball up and then make the correct passes. And then if they can score after that, that's even better. But if you're never going to look to pass and you're just going to try to shoot all the time, you better be a good shooter, at least like Lucy Olson was.
Yeah, I mean she's going to be tough to replace. I would after watching her,
we were lucky. I was lucky to get her in the transfer. They would have been in some trouble without Lucy Olson this year.
Yeah, she was really. It would have been really just watching her play. She is actually what Iowa State needed, just that type of player this year, and I think it'd have been really good, just to take some pressure off. And I think that Williams can do that a little bit, where if all the attention's on Addie Brown and Audie Crooks, she can go and she can finish and she can score 25, 30 points. But if they start taking her away, then obviously she's going to make a great pass to the other two. Because that's what Iowa State missed this year, was just that third consistent scorer. You'd get 20 from Crooks and you get 15 from Brown or vice versa. And then you'd get from everybody else 4, 4, 4, 6. Well, you needed that third double-digit consistent where on a given night they all do whatever, but over the course of the season they all average 15 to 20 points is what you need.
Yeah, you have that now. So on paper, Iowa State should be one of the top 25 teams, like you said, going into next season. And like I said, for Iowa, I feel pretty good about them. If Aaliyah Guyton would have been the point this coming year, I still kind of feel this way, but I think Iowa women is going to be a roller coaster type season. I could see them beating a team by 20 points or so early in the season and 3 days later losing by 20 or so. Iowa this year was really consistent. When they lost, it was all single digits for the most part until that Oklahoma game. So this coming year for Iowa women, I think, could be a roller coaster. They blow people out of the gym, and then 3 days later they get blown out.
Yeah, was it a super surprise that Iowa got beat by Oklahoma in Norman? Absolutely not. Was it a surprise they got beat that bad? Absolutely, because they hadn't been beat like that overall. Most against good teams, they had been right in it to the end.
Yeah, it was surprising. I mean, Iowa started out pretty well in that game, and then they had a couple of dumb passes. And I'm thinking, well, when you go from playing a Murray State to Oklahoma, obviously Oklahoma's faster, bigger. They just need to adjust. They'll get it figured out, and they just never did. I mean, Vince was talking on our chat the other day. He thinks Oklahoma is going to be one of the best teams next year, and they should be. I think they've got the number one recruit going there, the former Iowa player. She's the coach. So Oklahoma is a team that's up and coming right now in women's basketball.
Yeah, that number one player, she's Mexican American, and she's getting all kinds of NIL money and deals because of that, because it's just not a real popular sport for Mexican American girls to play, to succeed at that level. So she's making the most of it, which is great for her. And she's going to Oklahoma. She's from California, so it's kind of a long ways from home. But Jenny Bronchek did a great job recruiting her, and it'd be interesting to watch her. And then Addie Deal coming to Iowa, and the thing with Addie Deal, I didn't watch the game, but my buddy I teach with, he watched some of it. He goes, Addie just didn't get the ball. Obviously, it's an all-star game, not a lot of passing, not a lot of
there wasn't the quarter that I watched. There wasn't much passing going on, and there was a few times that she was open, and the girl who was playing point that she was playing with played for the team that she lost to in the state playoffs. So, but you never know about that. If there's any stuff going on between the two players. But I noticed that there wasn't much passing going on in that game, and then there was no really fouls. I mean, people were fouling each other left and right. It was actually pretty sloppy from what I noticed.
Yeah, just as you said, she did all right when she had the ball. She just never had the ball, so she just wasn't going to get any stats. But so let's go ahead and let's pick our women's Final Four since we're kind of on that topic here. UConn and UCLA. I know you said that UConn's favored, and I've got UConn winning that game. I'm pretty sure. I'm not 100% sure if that's what I have in my bracket, but I'm going to pick UConn to win that game.
Yeah, UConn's favored by 7.5. I'm going to go with UConn as well. The way they looked in the second half versus Oklahoma. I mean, Oklahoma blew Iowa out of the water, and then UConn blew Oklahoma out in that second half. So it really felt like UConn hit their stride in that one. So I am going to go UConn over UCLA. I mean, bets for UCLA, she's probably going to have a double-double at least to keep UCLA in the game. And Kiki Rice for UCLA is probably going to have she's going to have to get to double-digit scoring.
Yeah, and then you got South Carolina and Texas. Again, 2 SEC teams. So you're going to have SEC representative. Texas is really good, and I've talked about that. I watched them beat Iowa State last year in the Big 12 championship game, and they're young freshmen then. Now she's a sophomore. This is the real deal. She's really good. They beat USC one time this year, lost the other. I think they've only played twice. I don't think they played a third time in the tournament. Maybe they did. I forget. But I know they split the regular season. I'm pretty sure each of them won at home. So it'll be a good game. But I'm just not betting against South Carolina and Dawn Staley in any game. I have them winning the whole thing as well as South Carolina. But I think UConn could give them everything they want, because I know UConn went down to South Carolina, and I'm pretty sure put a hurting on them. It wasn't even close. But I do think Dawn Staley will have them ready to play in the championship game.
This South Carolina team to me doesn't feel like the past few years. Now they still can get to the title game and win it, but I think honestly, I think South Carolina's looked the worst of the 4 teams left to me. Now it's still South Carolina. They've got Dawn Staley, so it's tough to bet against them. But I'm going to go with Texas to win that one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not that. That does not. It would not shock me one bit. That team I watched last year play against Iowa State, they're good, and they have a good coach. He's been very successful everywhere he's been. I think he was at Mississippi State before and took them to the Final Four. Maybe he was at Georgia too. I mean, he's been around and taken multiple teams a long ways in the tournament, and he's really, really good, and they're really, really good. So it would not shock me at all. But I'm going to take South Carolina just because I have a hard time going against Dawn Staley. She's really, really good.
I'm going to take UConn. Paige Beckers is on fire. I could see this being Gino's last little run. He wants to get Paige a title. They're the favorites right now. They're minus 160 to win it all. I think South Carolina's plus 250, Texas 4 or 5 to 1. And I think UCLA is 6 or 7 to 1 right now to win it all. And they're the number 1 overall seed. So that shows you how the numbers are out of whack a little bit on the women's side compared to the men's when you're looking at the Final Four teams and the betting odds. But it's, me, I don't like big favorites like minus 160 on UConn. I'm always looking for, the plus money there. But I think the smart money's on UConn. You got to lay a lot to win some. But if I had to bet right now, I'd bet on UConn.
Yeah. And Paige Beckers, people do forget that she is in the same class as Caitlin Clark. She was ranked as a higher player. She was the best player in high school. She was the best player coming into college. She's who Gino Auriemma wanted, not Caitlin Clark. She's still in college because she blew her knee out and tore her ACL. That's the only reason she's still in college. She redshirted a year. But she's really, really good. A little bit different player than Caitlin Clark, but very, very good. She'll be the number 1 pick, I'm assuming, for this year. And depending on where she goes and how it works out, I'm sure they're going to try to promote her versus Caitlin as a rivalry along with Angel Reese, because they're all the same age, because Reese was in that class as well. Paige just a year behind because she hurt her knee.
Yeah, Paige was a big recruit coming out. She's a little bit more efficient of a player than Caitlin is. Caitlin's got more upside. She's a better three. It depends. She can shoot from further back. Caitlin's got more assists and rebounds per game, but you also got to remember Paige is playing at UConn, which is a powerhouse, so she doesn't have to do as much every game. But she will be the number 1 overall pick by Dallas. Like we said last year, even if Caitlin wasn't the player that Indiana needed, you still have to take her for the fans to get fans in the stands. That's the same thing with Dallas. She is the best player, but even if she wasn't, Dallas can't pass on her. She's gonna fill that arena every single night. So yeah, it's growing. Speaking of the WNBA, real quick, I know you and Tassel talked about it last week when you guys were on. The Fever should be pretty good. If you remember last year, they had about 4 legit players. Now they've got 7. They brought in Sophie Cunningham from Phoenix, DeWanna Bonner, and Natasha Howard. Natasha Howard's got 3 championships, I think. DeWanna Bonner's got 2. Bonner also has the most playoff games in WNBA history played, so she's got lots of experience. And probably the thing I'm looking most forward to is their enforcers. Bonner and Sophie Cunningham will be. So if you remember last year when Caitlin was getting pushed down and shoulder checked, that's not going to fly this year. Those 2 are going to come in and put an end to it. That's going to be fun to watch. I think the Indiana Fever are going to be involved in quite a few some brawls this year. I think a big one's coming because I don't think the rest of the WNBA is done messing with Caitlin Clark. So I think there's going to be a big brawl this year. And this year it's a little bit different. She's got enforcers to back her up this time.
She's not going to be out there by herself this year.
No. And, Boston probably should be, but Boston really doesn't have that personality.
No. And right or wrong, Boston has an image to uphold of being on TV and being a commentator that I'm sure she wants to continue. So she can't probably be part of that as much as maybe she would like to, because I would assume she probably makes just as much, if not more money being on TV as a commentator than she does in the WNBA.
Yeah, it's just not in her DNA, but Sophie and Bonner, it's in theirs. So you'll see that the fans will see that early this year. Those 2 are going to step in anytime there's a problem. And like I said, Sophie Cunningham, she's already a fan favorite and will continue to be. I think her jersey sold out within like 2 hours. She's from Columbia, Missouri, played college at Missouri. She was a fan favorite in Phoenix, and she already is one now. So I'm excited because, again, that game versus Chicago early in the year that we saw with Caitlin getting shoulder checked by Chinity Carter or whatever her name is, and then no one came to help. That's not going to happen this year. There's going to be people stepping in, and I wouldn't even be surprised if the Indiana Fever lose a game or 2 this year because there are some technicals. The other team gets some free throws. But I think you kind of build that in as a coaching staff saying, hey, we might lose 1 game this year because something dumb happens at the end, but overall it's going to be worth it in the long run.
What do you think of and I don't know her name or whatever, the girl from Notre Dame going in the transfer portal and not going to the WNBA, even though she would be the number 2 pick in the draft, is what she would project to be. Just because of money, she's going to get several $100,000 in college, but just like Caitlin Clark last year got paid $77,000 to play basketball. Now she made a way more off the court, but that's a WNBA problem right now, that the best players are going to try to stay in college as long as they can because of the pay situation until they get a new collective bargaining and they get all that figured out. But the WNBA has to start making money to do that.
Yeah, she's going to make more in college, so you don't blame her, and it's actually going to help the WNBA in the long run because we talked about this a while back. These women in the college game, people know who they are. They're staying for 3 and 4 years. I know Haley Van Lith is transferred, but she's been around forever. She's going to go into the WNBA with a brand. Paige Beckers has been at UConn forever. So I think it's going to help the WNBA in the long run. But yeah, until they get the rookie pay scale figured out in the WNBA where they're making $78,000 or whatever it is, why not stay in college for another year and make $300,000 like you just said?
Yeah, I mean it's a no-brainer in my book. Don't blame her at all, and that's why some of these mid-level. Well, I'm gonna use Deshaun Jackson for Iowa State. He went in the portal because Iowa State wanted him, not wanted him, but they were only going to pay him so much money. He could get more money probably from somebody else. he's a fringe NBA guy at best, probably G League or overseas. But if you can make $700,000 this year in college, you're not getting that in the G League or overseas in year one. Now, if you make it in overtime, you will. But that's a heck of a start in life, even if you never play another day of competitive basketball for money. You just got $700,000, and I'm sure he got a few $100,000 this year from Iowa State. So over a 2-year period, you get $1 million. That's one heck of a start in life.
Yeah, it's not bad to be a college athlete right now. Even even if you're the 6th, 7th person on the bench, you're probably still making a decent amount. If you have a good year, you can go to a bigger school, all that type of stuff. So being a college athlete, men's or women's side, there's a lot of advantages to it right now. And I think that we've talked about it before. I think it hurt the NBA with the one and done. People go in the G League, you lose track of them. You don't know where they go, and nobody watches the G League. You don't know what these players are doing. So I actually think it's beneficial for the guys that can stay in college for 2 or 3 years or longer at a Duke, a North Carolina, Kansas Jayhawks, wherever. And people, like yourself, a fan of Iowa State, or more casual fans like me, we kind of learn who the players are. Then you can follow them in the NBA. But when they go to the G League, they just disappear.
Yeah, and it's going to be like right now, the best players in the NBA are your older players like a LeBron or a Steph that didn't go to college or went to one school. Your younger ones only went to college for like 1 year. Like some of them, like, where did they go to college? And then you go look, they played at Kentucky, but they weren't even a star at Kentucky. They came off the bench as a freshman, but they're really good potential and are really good in the NBA. So hopefully in the next 10 years, these guys right now that are in college that are now, they aren't staying in one school for 3-4 years. They're bouncing around a little bit, but at least like you said, you've seen them, you've heard them, you see them in the NCAA tournament. And so in 10 years, when there's 5, 6, 7 years in the NBA, you're going to at least know who they are. Because I think right now the best players are people from Europe or guys that are one and dones or no college, and those are hard to keep track of.
Yeah, it definitely is. So that's why I think the women have such an advantage right now, is because the women have to stay in college longer. And then when they go to the WNBA, they have a following. I think 4 of the top 5 college athletes right now in basketball are all women. I think I saw a stat about that or something. Yep. Instagram followers that we were just talking about earlier. So they stay in college, they gain a fan base. That's a good thing about the NFL. They've got college football. Guys have to stay for at least a few years. Baker Mayfield plays at Oklahoma. I mean, he's got a following when he goes into the NFL, just like all these other players do. And the NBA, I mean, it's tough to keep track of where they went. You don't know them. And that's, like I said, the women have the advantage right now on that end of it.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Do you want to touch the Masters, or you just want to wait till next week with the Masters, Trev?
We can. The only thing I really looked at for the Masters, and I haven't been watching much golf, admittingly. I need to start watching more, actually. My guy that I like listening to, John Middlecoff, he was a former scout for the Eagles. Andy Reid hired him. He's living the dream right now. So he lives in Scottsdale, and he does a football podcast basically every day, Monday through Friday. And then when he gets done with his football podcast, he either watches golf all day or plays golf. So I'm waiting for him to put out his podcast, because he does a bunch of top 10 and top 20 bets, which those are more realistic to do if you're going to bet on golf. Right. I like to do the winners, but it's tougher to hit on that. I did see Justin Thomas. Did he get like second or third last week at a tournament? He's 22 to 1. So I think there's some value on that, just because obviously he's one of the best players the last 10 years.
Right.
Bryson is 20 to 1. Brooks Koepka is 28 to 1. So I think I'm going to throw a bet on all 3 of those guys, and they're all bunched together kind of right in that same betting bracket. I was looking earlier too, like how the mighty have fallen. Dustin Johnson, and I don't expect him to win. Dustin Johnson's 100 to 1 to win the Masters. He used to be like 6 to 1 all the time.
Right. I don't know what's happened to him. When he went to live, he started off that first year or so, won 3 or 4 times. Excuse me. But I don't know what's happened in the last year or so. But he's not near the player he used to be. Really. He was the face of Live to start, really, for the golf part of it. But definitely it is Bryson now. He's He's playing really good, and Bryson's got a legit chance, I think. Deep down, I'd love to see McIlroy win it just because that'd get the Grand Slam and him a Masters. But I don't know if it's in the cards for him anymore.
I hope he gets one at some point too. Yeah, he's plus 650 right now, which I don't mind that as much. Scotty Scheffler's plus 350, but I don't know if Scotty's won this year. Again, I haven't been paying close enough attention. I'll try to find that out for next week.
He got second last week, so I mean he's playing okay.
I saw that he got second. I think he's got a bunch of top 20, so it's not like he's playing bad. But at plus 350, it feels like he should be closer to 5-1 to 6-1. I really don't want to bet on Scotty Scheffler at plus 350. So we'll take a look at some of those. We'll have some top 10 and top 20s for everybody. And then, like I said, the draft position over-unders just came out. Team over-unders came out for the NFL too. And there was two that stuck out to me. The Miami Dolphins win total is 8.5. I think I'm going to hammer the under on that. I think they have a chance to be one of the worst teams in the league. And the Indianapolis Colts was 7.5. I think I'm going to go under on them as well. Both those teams, both had coaches say that they constantly had players showing up late to meetings. Both their seasons didn't go very well. Obviously, we've got Tyreek Hill in Miami. He's constantly tweeting about how he wants out, and then he comes out and says he's happy. And it's just, I think the Dolphins and Colts could both be really bad next year.
Who's the Colts head coach? I can't even remember.
Lycan.
That's right.
Yep.
I saw that Frank Reich just got hired as Stanford's head coach. Do you see that whole deal?
It's a 1 year. From what I read, it's a 1 year.
1 year deal. Good for all involved, but that's a weird deal having to fire a coach in April at Stanford.
Andrew Luck's the GM.
Yep.
That's what I said. We talked about that a while back too. These colleges are having to hire GM type people, people that played in the NFL. Guys are coming in managing their cap or their NIL money or however all that works. So it's college is changing, but yeah, we'll get into more of the Masters next week. Like I said, I think you're going to send out a text for the people that usually do that pool. We'll try to have some top 10s and top 20 bets for that, and then the week or two after the Masters, we'll really get into the NFL draft. Yeah,
we'll look into that pool. I got to find my text or whatever too. I got to find it. But we'll try to figure it out. And yep. Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks for subscribing. There's been 4, 5, 7 people watching this. I know it's a little later tonight than normal. Thanks a lot. Rate, review, subscribe, whatever. Leave a comment. And we'll hope to catch you next week. And we'll talk to you later, Trev.
Rest in peace, Doc Holliday. Val Kilmer passed away, so
yeah, that does suck.
Cody just sent a text. Make sure you mention Val Kilmer. So rest in peace to Doc Holliday and all the other roles that he played throughout the years.
Yeah, he was Batman. He was Jim Morrison. Doc Holliday, and then obviously Iceman. Yep, Iceman.
Yep. Yeah, that was sad to see.
Yeah, but he had battled health for quite a while, so sometimes it's if he wasn't healthy and wasn't able to do what he wanted to do or could do anymore, then hopefully he's in a better place now. So
no, that's right. So thanks everybody for listening. Yeah, next week we'll do some more golf and then we'll get into NFL draft stuff. So
all right, talk to you later. See ya.
Have a good night.